Lyra had never seen a world like Earth before. From the moment her ship broke through the clouds, she felt an energy that was different from her home planet. Everything was precise, planned, and efficient. The air was thick with faint glows of bioluminescent flora, the skies shimmered with structured light patterns, and the citizens moved in predictable harmony. Life there was orderly, almost mechanical, yet beautiful in its perfection. Earth, however, was messy and chaotic, but it had a charm Lyra had never imagined. The greens of the forests were richer than any pigment she had known. The oceans were deep, restless, and alive. The winds carried smells and sounds that felt almost musical, vibrating through her body in ways that startled and fascinated her. Lyra's mission was simple in words but complex in meaning. She was sent to study humans, the seemingly fragile species who had managed to survive and thrive against odds far harsher than any ever imagined. On paper, humans were inefficient, emotional, and vulnerable. In practice, they were extraordinary. Their laughter could brighten a room, their tears could change a heart, and their courage often logic. Lyra's curiosity about them was more than scientific, it was personal. She had studied their biology, their culture, their history. She had memorized the data, analyzed the statistics, and yet she felt that she still understood nothing of what made humans so alive. When she arrived in the human city, she was immediately struck by how unpredictable it all seemed. People moved in ways that made no sense to her. They stopped to smile at strangers, hugged in the middle of streets, and whispered in tones that carried emotion instead of logic. Lyra observed quietly, hiding behind her translator's cloak, her eyes reflecting every detail. She noticed a young man sitting on a park bench, feeding a small stray dog with a careful tenderness that made her chest tighten in an unfamiliar way. He laughed at the dog's antics, a sound full of warmth and joy. She realized that humans had a rhythm she could not analyze or replicate, and that fascinated her even more. Her first week on Earth was filled with careful observation, but it also brought something unexpected, a feeling she had not anticipated, longing. It was a quiet ache, a desire to experience rather than just watch. Reproduction was a precise, clinical procedure. It had no emotion, no uncertainty, no warmth. Yet here on Earth, she had begun to notice how humans connected with one another, especially in ways she could not fully understand. She watched couples hold hands, whisper secrets, and share laughter that seemed to bind them together like invisible threads. Every glance, every touch, carried a weight that was entirely foreign to her. One evening, as the twin moons of Earth rose high in the sky, Lyra walked along the quiet riverbank. The water shimmered with reflections of silver and blue, and the air was thick with the scent of blooming flowers. She paused to watch a young couple sit close together, their fingers entwined, their eyes shining. Lyra felt something stir deep inside her, a combination of awe, curiosity, and something she could not name. Her chest ached, and she realized it was not just fascination she felt for humans anymore. It was connection. It was at that moment that she met Jacob. He was unlike anyone she had observed before. Tall, gentle, and patient, he carried an aura of kindness that seemed to touch everyone around him. When he spoke, he listened with his entire being, as if every word mattered. Lyra watched him from a distance at first, noting how he treated people, not as subjects, not as data, but as living, breathing beings. When their eyes finally met, Lyra felt a strange heat rise through her. It was not physical in the way sensations worked. It was deeper, more subtle, almost spiritual. Jacob smiled at her, sensing her hesitation and curiosity. His smile was welcoming, free of fear or judgment. Lyra knew then that her mission would not just be about observing humans. She wanted to understand them in ways no book or database could teach. She wanted to know their hearts, their emotions, and the intimate connections they shared. And deep down, she felt that Jacob would be part of that journey, her guide, her bridge into a world she had never truly known. As she stood under the pale light of the moon, Lyra whispered softly to herself, This is life, and I want to feel it fully." From that night, a quiet determination grew inside her. She would study humans, yes, but she would also experience them. She would learn their ways, their struggles, their joys. And in doing so, she would discover something more precious than knowledge. She would discover connection, trust, and the extraordinary beauty of being alive. Days passed, and Lyra settled into Earth's rhythm. Every morning, she would walk through the bustling streets, observing humans interact. Their gestures fascinated her, how a simple touch could calm a child, how a smile could lift a stranger's mood, how a hand held in silence could convey more than words ever could. She cataloged everything in her mind, but the more she observed, the more she realized that facts alone could never capture the essence of humanity. There was something deeper, something intangible that she longed to understand. Her fascination was not just intellectual. It had become personal, urgent. There was one aspect of human life that called to her relentlessly, the way humans created life. On reproduction was a simple process of genetic programming, precise and detached. There were no emotions, no anticipation, no warmth. But here on Earth, reproduction seemed sacred. Humans treated it with care, tenderness, and an intimacy that Lyra could sense even from a distance. She had read the science, studied the biology, memorized the procedures, but it was not enough. She wanted to experience it. She wanted to feel the connection that humans described, the vulnerability, the trust, the love. Lyra spent hours studying human behavior related to family, parenting, and intimacy. She noticed the way expecting parents would hold each other's hands, the gentle whispers shared during quiet moments, and the protective, almost reverent care they gave to the smallest beings. These moments were fleeting, subtle, and yet they carried power that textbooks could not explain. She began to feel a longing she had never known, a desire to participate, to understand the depth of human connection firsthand. It was during one of her late evening walks by the river that she finally spoke to Jacob. The river's surface mirrored the twin moons and the air smelled of wet earth and flowers. Jacob was sitting on a bench, sketching the reflections on the water. Lyra approached, her steps cautious but steady. "Jacob," she said softly. He looked up and smiled, sensing both her curiosity and her hesitation. "I've been thinking," she continued, "about something I've read and observed, something humans do that I don't understand fully." Her voice trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of admitting a desire she had never shared with anyone. "I want to experience it, human reproduction. I want to understand it the way humans do, not just from data or observation, but from feeling." Jacob blinked, surprise and wonder crossing his face. He had anticipated questions about culture, food, language, even emotions, but never this. And yet when he looked into Lyra's eyes, he saw no recklessness, no mischief. He saw curiosity, sincerity, and a hunger to learn that mirrored the determination he had always admired in her. "This is unusual," he said carefully, "but I can help you only if you want it, only if you're ready to take it slow. We'll go step by step, and it's okay if it takes time. The most important thing is trust." Lyra felt warmth spread through her chest. Trust. That was exactly what she had been missing in her calculations. On everything was measured, controlled, predictable. Here, trust carried power, power that no algorithm could replicate. I am ready," she whispered. "I want to understand humans in every way. I want to feel this connection fully." Jacob nodded, his expression gentle but serious. "Then we will do it together, carefully, patiently, and we'll stop whenever you want. You will guide me as much as I guide you." For the first time, Lyra realized that understanding humans was not just about science. It was about emotion, empathy, and mutual respect. The anticipation she felt was not fear, it was excitement. She was standing on the threshold of something that would change her forever, something far beyond any study or mission. That night, as she returned to her quarters, Lyra lay awake staring at the ceiling. She could still feel the warmth of the river, the gentle sound of Jacob's voice, the trust in his gaze. Her mind raced with possibilities, but her heart knew one truth. Experiencing this human method of creating life would teach her something that data never could. It would teach her about connection, vulnerability, and the profound strength hidden in intimacy. And as the twin moons bathed the city in soft silver light, Lyra whispered to herself, "I am ready. I will feel it. I will understand what it truly means to be human." Next few days were filled with preparation. Lyra studied human physiology more closely than ever before, taking notes, asking Jacob questions, and imagining how her own alien biology might respond. She had never felt anticipation like this. Experiments were logical, precise, and predictable. Here, every thought, every heartbeat, carried a mixture of excitement and nervousness that she had never experienced. Jacob was patient. Every time Lyra asked a question, he answered with care, explaining not just the mechanics but the emotions behind human intimacy. "It's not just biology. he said one evening as they sat by the softly glowing river. It's trust, connection, sharing yourself with someone you care about. It's messy, sometimes confusing, but it's always real. Lyra listened, her heart pounding. She had studied thousands of human texts, analyzed countless data points, yet nothing could prepare her for the complexity of feeling. She realized that understanding humans wasn't just about seeing their actions. It was about participating in them, letting herself be vulnerable, and trusting someone else fully. Finally, the moment came. Lyra and Jacob sat across from each other in her quarters, a soft light filling the room. She felt nervous in a way she had never imagined. Her alien body reacted strangely to the human closeness, her pulse quickened, and warmth spread through her chest. Jacob reached for her hand gently, not forcing anything, just offering reassurance. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Lyra nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "I am." Their first attempt was tentative. Every touch, every movement was new and strange for Lyra. She had expected science, precision, maybe even predictability, but human reproduction was different. It was chaotic in a way that was beautiful. It involved not just the body, but the mind, the heart, and the soul. She felt sensations she couldn't name, emotions that overwhelmed her, and a connection to Jacob that went deeper than she had ever imagined. It was awkward at times. Lyra's alien physiology didn't perfectly match human biology. There were moments of confusion, small stumbles, and frustrations, but Jacob never rushed her, never criticized. He simply smiled, held her hand, and whispered encouragements. "It's okay," he said softly. "We're learning together, there's no rush, just feel it, feel me, feel yourself." Slowly, Lyra began to understand. The physical sensations were important, yes, but it was the trust, the shared vulnerability that made the experience meaningful. She felt warmth spread through her chest, a new kind of heartbeat that was both hers and somehow shared with Jacob. She realized that this was the essence of humanity, the ability to connect, to share, to surrender just enough to create something beautiful together. Tears welled in her eyes. She had never felt anything like this. On reproduction was a function, a duty, a calculation. Here it was life, love, and trust combined. She leaned closer to Jacob, her voice trembling. "I understand now, I feel why humans treasure this. It's not just life, it's connection, it's love." Jacob smiled, his own eyes glistening. "Yes," he whispered. "It's everything humans are, fragile, messy, imperfect, but strong in ways nothing else can be. You're doing more than learning, Lyra, you're feeling it. And that's what matters." The rest of the evening passed slowly. They moved carefully, communicating silently with looks, touches, and breaths. Lyra's alien mind tried to catalog every sensation, every reaction, but she soon realized that no data could capture the depth of what she felt. It was emotional, spiritual, and alive in ways that numbers could never explain. When they finally rested, Lyra lay beside Jacob, her chest still heavy with emotion. She looked up at the soft glow of Earth's twin moons streaming through the window and whispered, "I never imagined life could feel like this." Jacob reached over and brushed a strand of hair from her face. "And yet it does," he said gently. "Humans survive, love, and connect because of this, and now you understand a part of it too." Lyra closed her eyes, letting herself absorb the experience. She realized that this was only the beginning. There would be struggles, frustrations, and mistakes, but there would also be beauty, warmth, and connection unlike anything she had ever known. For the first time in her life, she felt truly alive, not as an observer, but as a participant in the extraordinary, messy, and beautiful story of humanity. In the days that followed, Lyra realized that understanding human reproduction was not as simple as observing or even feeling once. Her alien body responded differently, often resisting what humans took for granted. Movements that should have been natural felt awkward. Sensations that humans described as gentle or subtle overwhelmed her, while some feelings she expected were strangely absent. Frustration settled in her chest, heavier than anything she had ever experienced. She had always prided herself on learning quickly, on mastering new skills with precision. On challenges were solved with logic and effort. But here, no amount of calculation could bridge the gap between her and human experience. Every attempt left her feeling incomplete, unsure, even vulnerable in ways she had never known. For the first time in her life, Lyra faced a struggle she could not control with intellect alone. One evening, after several failed attempts, she to her quarters, her luminous skin dimming slightly as her heart raced. She stared at the ceiling, the soft hum of Earth's night outside her window. Doubt crept in like a shadow she could not push away. Am I too different, she thought. Can I ever truly feel this way? The thought of surrendering fully to something so human made her chest ache, a mixture of fear and longing that left her trembling. Jacob sensed her hesitation before she even spoke. He approached quietly, kneeling beside her and placing a hand gently on hers. "Lyra," he said softly, "you're not failing, you're learning, and this is supposed to take time. Humans aren't perfect at this either. We stumble, we get confused, but we try because it matters, and so do you." Lyra looked at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. There was a warmth in his words, a gentle reassurance she had not expected. In that moment, she realized that human reproduction was more than biology. It was emotional, fragile, and powerful all at once. It demanded trust, patience, and vulnerability, qualities that her species had never required in such intensity. Over the next days, they tried again, but not without tension. Sometimes Lyra's alien instincts made her withdraw too quickly, fearing the unfamiliar sensations. Other times, the intensity of emotion overwhelmed her, leaving her breathless and frustrated. Each setback felt like a failure, and each small success brought relief tinged with exhaustion. Yet through it all, Jacob remained patient. He held her hand when she needed grounding, whispered encouragement when her doubt grew, and never judged her for her mistakes. One night, as they sat together under the quiet glow of the city lights, Lyra finally admitted her fear. "Jacob, what if I can never truly feel it the way humans do?" she whispered. Her voice trembled, raw and honest. Jacob shook his head gently, smiling with quiet conviction. "Lyra, it's not about being exactly like a human. It's about you feeling, connecting, and trusting. Every reaction, every emotion you experience, alien or human, is real. That's what matters. That's what makes this meaningful." Tears filled Lyra's eyes as she absorbed his words. For the first time, she understood that her struggle was not a failure. It was part of the journey. She began to see that human intimacy was not just about physical alignment or perfect timing. It was about sharing a space, a heartbeat, and a willingness to open one's heart. The messiness, the confusion, and even the frustration were essential parts of its beauty. Gradually, she allowed herself to surrender. Each attempt became less about precision and more about connection. She began to notice subtle shifts, how Jacob's calm presence soothed her tension, how his gentle words encouraged her courage, how shared laughter lightened the moments of uncertainty. Slowly, what had once been overwhelming began to feel natural, even comforting. By the end of the week, Lyra felt a sense of accomplishment she had never known. Not because she had mastered the process perfectly, but because she had learned to trust herself, to accept her differences, and to embrace the vulnerability that human reproduction demanded. She had taken the first true step toward understanding humans, not as a scientist studying data, but as a being experiencing life fully, emotionally, and honestly. As she lay beside Jacob that night, the city lights casting soft shadows across her glowing form, Lyra whispered, "I think I am starting to understand." Jacob smiled, brushing a strand of her hair from her face. "And that understanding, that feeling, is more than enough. You're doing beautifully." For the first time, Lyra realized that struggle was not a weakness. It was part of what made humans, and now herself, capable of deep connection and extraordinary emotion. And in that realization, she felt closer than ever to the heart of humanity. After days of struggle, moments of doubt, and countless small failures, Lyra began to notice a shift within herself. It started subtly at first, a warmth in her chest that lingered longer than before, a sense of calm when Jacob's hand brushed against hers, a quiet anticipation that wasn't fear. She realized that something was changing, not in the mechanics of the process, but in how she felt. One evening, the city was quiet, bathed in the soft golden glow of sunset. Lyra and Jacob sat close together, their hands intertwined, their breathing slow and steady. There was no rush, no pressure, no expectation of perfection. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to be present. She let go of the calculations, the comparisons too, the worry about doing something wrong. Instead, she focused entirely on the sensations, the trust, and the shared moment between them. Then it happened, a wave of connection unlike anything she had ever imagined. It started deep within her chest, a warmth that spread outward through her arms, her legs, even to the tips of her glowing fingers. It was emotional, spiritual, and physical all at once. She gasped softly, not in fear, but in wonder. This was what humans had felt. This was what they called love, trust, and intimacy all rolled into one. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, I feel it." Her voice trembled with a mixture of awe and relief. She had waited for this moment, longed for it, and now it had arrived. It was more than sensation, it was understanding. She understood why humans treasured this connection. It was not just a biological process. It was a bond, fragile yet powerful, messy yet beautiful, terrifying yet comforting. Jacob smiled, his own eyes glistening. "Yes," he said softly. "This is what I wanted you to experience, not just the mechanics, but the feeling, the trust, the closeness, the courage to share yourself fully. That is what makes humans human." Lyra leaned closer, her glowing hand resting against his chest. She felt his heartbeat, steady and strong, and it synced with her own in a rhythm she had never known. It was not perfect, not controlled, not calculated, but it was alive. The realization struck her with overwhelming clarity. This was what life was truly about, not survival or logic, but connection, vulnerability, and the willingness to open oneself to another being. For the first time, Lyra laughed, a soft, bubbling sound that surprised her. It was light, freeing, and full of joy. Jacob laughed with her, their eyes meeting in mutual wonder. In that laughter, all the frustration, doubt, and fear of the past days melted away. She had crossed a bridge from observation to participation, from curiosity to experience, from alien detachment to human understanding. Hours passed, but neither of them moved. They simply existed together, wrapped in a bond that needed no words. Lyra realized that human intimacy was not a series of steps or a procedure to master. It was a shared journey, a connection that grew stronger with patience, trust, and care. And in that moment, she felt fully alive, fully herself, and fully human in a way she had never imagined. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but certain. "Jacob, thank you for being patient, for trusting me, for letting me feel this." Jacob shook his head gently, brushing her hair from her face. "No, Lyra, you did this yourself. You opened your heart, trusted the process, and allowed yourself to feel. I just helped you see it. You've learned what humans take a lifetime to understand." Lyra's glowing eyes shimmered with emotion. She knew he was right. The breakthrough was hers, earned through patience, struggle, and courage. She had not just experienced human reproduction, she had felt the essence of humanity itself. That night, as Earth's twin moons rose high in the sky, Lyra lay beside Jacob, her chest still warm, her mind calm yet alive with wonder. For the first time, she felt complete, not because she had mastered something, but because she had opened herself fully to another being. She had trusted, connected, and experienced life in its most intimate and profound form. And in that shared silence, Lyra whispered to herself, This is what it means to be alive." The days after Lyra's breakthrough were different. She woke each morning with a quiet calm, a sense of purpose that had not existed before. Something inside her had shifted. Life had always been about precision, efficiency, and predictability. Every action, every feeling had a place, a measurement, a purpose. But Earth and the humans she now understood so much better had shown her that life was more than order. It was emotion, connection, and courage. Lyra noticed it in herself first. She laughed more easily, her curiosity now accompanied by genuine warmth rather than detached observation. She found herself noticing small things, the way the wind whispered through the trees, the way a human child's laughter could lift her spirits, the way shared silence could feel like a conversation deeper than words. Everything was richer, more alive, because she had felt connection firsthand. Jacob remained a steady presence. They spent hours talking, walking, and simply existing together. Lyra shared her thoughts about how she had never felt truly alive before, about the emptiness of life without emotion. Jacob listened, offering no judgment, only encouragement. "You've always had the potential," he said one evening as they watched the sunset from a quiet hill. "You just didn't realize it. Humans have feelings, yes, but you've learned to feel. That's the difference." Lyra smiled, a genuine, soft smile that reached her eyes. "I understand now. Life isn't just about surviving. It's about connecting, trusting, and experiencing fully. Humans, they're stronger than they appear, not because they are perfect, but because they open themselves to one another even when it's hard." She began to share her experiences with others on Earth. Lyra spoke to scientists, educators, and her fellow alien visitors, describing not the mechanics of human reproduction, but the emotions, trust, and intimacy she had felt. She explained how human vulnerability created strength, how shared experiences forged bonds, and how the act of opening oneself to another being could transform not just individuals, but entire communities. Her words fascinated humans and alike. Many had expected an alien to describe humans in terms of weakness or inefficiency. Instead, Lyra celebrated what made them extraordinary, their courage, empathy, and the depth of their connections. She described the first time she truly felt human intimacy, the trust she had placed in Jacob, the patience, the laughter, the warmth. Listeners were captivated not just by her words, but by the emotion she conveyed. Lyra herself was changed. She no longer saw humans as fragile creatures to be studied. She saw them as resilient, emotional, and profound. She felt a deep kinship with them, a recognition that life was not a series of calculations or efficiencies, but a tapestry of feelings, trust, and shared experience. Even her own alien perspective evolved. Lyra had been trained to value logic above all else, to measure success in results and efficiency. But now she saw that true understanding required patience, empathy, and the courage to embrace uncertainty. She had felt the beauty of imperfection, the power of trust, and the magic of connection. These were lessons no data could teach, no experiment could replicate. They had to be experienced, lived, and felt. One night, Lyra stood alone on a quiet rooftop, gazing at Earth's twin moons. The city lights below twinkled like stars in a living galaxy. She thought of the structured perfection she had once valued so highly, and realized that she no longer desired it above all else. Earth, humans, and the emotional journey she had undertaken had shown her something far greater, the fullness of life. Jacob appeared beside her, silent but comforting. He offered his hand, and she took it without hesitation. In that simple gesture, she felt a bond stronger than any scientific principle, deeper than any calculation. They stood together, gazing at the moons, feeling the quiet pulse of the city and the unspoken understanding between them. Lyra whispered softly, "I never knew life could feel this real." Jacob smiled, squeezing her hand gently. "And now you do. That's what it means to live fully, to feel, to trust, to connect." For the first time, Lyra believed it completely. She was no longer an observer of life. She was part of it. Every emotion, every heartbeat, every shared glance with Jacob, and every connection she had experienced with humans had transformed her. She was more alive than she had ever imagined, and she knew that her journey was only just beginning. And as the twin moons reflected their light across her glowing skin, Lyra realized something profound. She had discovered not just the human way of life, but a universal truth. Life's greatest strength lay not in perfection, but in the courage to open one's heart and feel. Time passed, but Lyra's experience continued to resonate within her. She had come to Earth as an observer, a student of human biology and culture. She had expected to catalog facts, record behaviors, and return to with data. Instead, she had found something far greater, a living understanding of connection, trust, and the extraordinary depth of human emotion. She had learned that life was not simply about survival or efficiency. It was about choosing to open your heart, to be vulnerable, and to embrace the chaos and beauty of experience. She had seen perfection as the ultimate goal. On Earth, she had learned that imperfection, fragility, and emotion were what made life remarkable. And it was in that realization that she felt truly alive. Lyra shared her knowledge widely. She spoke to human scientists, alien scholars, and anyone willing to listen. But she did not speak in dry, scientific terms. Instead, she told stories of trust, laughter, frustration, and warmth. She described the moments with Jacob when she had felt the human heartbeat, not just literally, but emotionally. She explained how patience, care, and vulnerability were not weaknesses, but strengths. And those who listened were moved, not only by her words, but by the authenticity of her experience. Jacob remained by her side through it all. They had grown together, sharing more than knowledge. They had shared life itself. Their bond was not limited to curiosity or study. It was deep, emotional, and unbreakable. Through him, Lyra had learned that connection could transcend differences of species, culture, and biology. It could create understanding where none seemed possible and build bridges between worlds. One evening, Lyra returned to the riverbank where she had first confessed her curiosity. The water reflected the twin moons as it had that night, soft and shimmering. She sat quietly, listening to the gentle ripple of the river. Memories of struggle, doubt, and breakthroughs flowed through her mind. She remembered the awkward first attempts, the frustration, the confusion, and the moments when she had wanted to give up. But she also remembered the trust, the laughter, and the warmth that had carried her forward. A small smile formed on her lips. She realized that her journey had not been about mastering human reproduction or understanding it as a science. It had been about feeling, connecting, and becoming part of a story larger than herself. That was the lesson humans offered, a lesson that no calculation, no formula, and no structured perfection could ever teach. Lyra turned to Jacob, who was standing quietly beside her, and took his hand. "I understand now," she said softly. "I understand why humans cherish life, why they celebrate trust and connection. It is because this feeling makes us more than ourselves. It makes life sacred." Jacob nodded, his expression warm and filled with pride. "You've learned it fully, Lyra, and you've experienced it in a way that many never do. That's the power of humans, our emotions, our courage to be vulnerable, our ability to connect. You've embraced it, and that's extraordinary." For the first time, Lyra looked at herself not as an alien observing humans, but as someone who had truly experienced the essence of life. She had crossed barriers, faced doubt, embraced struggle, and discovered something universal. Connection, trust, and love were not limited to one species. They were the heartbeat of all living beings. Years later, when she returned to, Lyra brought more than reports and data. She brought stories, memories, and a profound understanding of what made humans remarkable. Her fellow were astonished. Many had dismissed humans as fragile or inefficient, but Lyra spoke of strength born from vulnerability, wisdom born from emotion, and courage born from connection. And somewhere deep inside her, Lyra knew that she had changed forever. She had discovered not just the human way of life, but a universal truth. Life's greatest strength lay not in perfection, but in the courage to open one's heart, to feel fully, and to connect deeply. Standing beneath the twin moons once more, Lyra whispered to herself, her voice steady and serene. "This is life. This is connection. This is what it truly means to be alive." Jacob stood silently beside her, his presence grounding and comforting, and together they watched the moons rise. Lyra knew that their journey was not just a personal story. It was a legacy of understanding, emotion, and the extraordinary strength that lay in embracing life fully. And in that quiet moment, with the earth alive beneath them and the stars above, Lyra felt complete. She had come to learn humans, and in doing so she had discovered herself and the limitless beauty of life itself.